grateful to be here today with three of my new friends. So I want to introduce Marc Howland of Breadless. We have Sean Carroll of EnBiologics and Mick Rambus of Hush. So I'm Deanna Callaghan. I'm the Managing Director of Endeavor here in the Great Lakes. A little bit about Endeavor. We're a global network of high-growth founders. We work primarily with growth stage founders. So typically companies at the Series A through exit. We're global. We're in 42 markets around the world. We have about 2,500 founders that are part of our network, and we're just getting started here in Detroit. We act as a concierge service to founders, helping them access capital, mentorship, national and global markets, leadership development support, and community. So given what I do, you can see that I'll be thrilled to be here today to talk about entrepreneurship in Detroit, and I'm extra thrilled to be talking to these three about their stories. All three very different industries, very different products, but I think you're going to be as inspired as I was hearing about them. Before diving in, though, I want to set the stage on entrepreneurship here in the Detroit area. I was lucky enough to work with the William Davidson Foundation over the last couple of years to do a study on how we are performing as it relates to global markets, national markets, and what could we be doing a little bit differently, and what could we be doing better. So we teamed up with a global organization called StartupGenome, who specializes in policy and advocacy research. And we actually hired an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur here out of Detroit named Justin Mast, who is between building his first company, Bloomscape, and now his second company, so that we could have some candid conversations with entrepreneurs and learn about what worked well when they were building their companies here, what could we have done a little bit differently, and what didn't even we think about that we should be thinking about as we enter into our next stage of growth here. And what we learned was pretty insightful, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about this today, but there were really 5 main takeaways that we wanted to talk about. And the candid conversations with entrepreneurs, it was pretty obvious that many of them wanted to see a more robust strategy as it related to high-growth entrepreneurship. That there was a lot of great initiatives happening, but it wasn't over one overarching strategy. They also said that the support organizations didn't work very well together or didn't know exactly what each and every one were doing, what they could offer. And they wanted to see a little bit more transparency into which organizations were working, which ones were knocking it out of the park, and which ones needed a little bit more support. The second theme is that our entrepreneurs here, in comparison to sister cities, aimed lower. So many of them wanted to have lifestyle businesses or brick and mortar businesses, but there was really an opportunity to think bigger, and even our scale-up companies had the opportunity to think bigger. The third area is that we need more capital. We need more money going into our early stage investors to be able to invest in more companies. There was a huge opportunity that we talked about with engaging more angels here, which hopefully some people in the audience might help us out at some point. And that we need more thought leadership from our early stage funders as well. The fourth of what we saw in comparison to peer markets was that many companies didn't make it even to the seed funding round. And the ones that did, even fewer made it to the Series A than our counterparts in other markets. And the ones that did make it to the Series A actually had lower valuations than what we had seen in different markets, which also goes along with needing more capital, needing more support from the community. And the fifth area that's important is that we really need more money, more efforts, and more visibility, especially policy and advocacy, to support growth stage, high growth entrepreneurship here to be able to put us on the map. And we need to tell our story better. So those are some of the takeaways. We'll see if your experiences were similar to what we heard. But first, instead of me telling your story, you guys all have incredible stories and have built incredible businesses. So actually, Mick, I want to start with you. You're now a 3-time founder. You had an incredible experience at Equifax, was it?
That's right.
And now you're building Hush, which is a cybersecurity platform for individuals and large organizations. So tell us a little bit about building your company and doing it here in Detroit.
Sure. So Thank you very much. Good to be here. It's funny, I was in the audience, I think now 7 years ago, as an expat, considering moving back to Detroit to build a business here. So I'm glad to be home, glad to be building our company right here in Detroit. The business that we're building now, Thank you. The business that we're building now is called Hush. It's a cyber security and privacy company. Basically, we try to solve the issue where so many companies are under attack from all kinds of cyber threats. 98% of those are from social engineering, which is basically code for being conned, right, online. And so how do you fix that? We remove information about individuals, about executives off the internet so that the con folks can't do what they do best, which is research their mark, right? All of us. So that's what we do from a business perspective. What I love about building this company here in Detroit is there is, right, a great ecosystem and a growing ecosystem of talent, of investors, right? We're not there yet. There's much work to be done, certainly, but there's every opportunity in this ecosystem. I'm sure you heard, of course, and you know a lot about the university system here. Of course, we're at Wayne State today. It has all the right ingredients to make it happen, and we've had some very successful companies like Duo Security, billion-dollar-plus exit, like OneStream, which is on the mark, StockX as well. So it can be done in Michigan, right? Those aspirations can be extremely high. We very much believe in that, given the opportunity set, but we got to make it happen. So here we are, right in Detroit.
That's right. Sean, tell us a little bit about you and growing EnBiologics.
Yeah, so my business partner, Rami, Habib, and myself started in 2016, and we started with an in-house brand, HoneyCure. It was a wound care platform that we designed as we were biomedical engineering students. We launched it, targeted the veterinary care market first. And a lot of our decisions in that is we were not able to secure a lot of funding as we got started. So we went after a market that had a good need, which was pets, and we had an excellent product for it. And we experienced great growth. In 2018, we hit an absolutely great year. We took some investment from the Anderson Institute. We were able to do some clinical trials, show that our product was really what we said it was. In 2019, we were growing great. 2020, we pivoted a bit, thanks to certain events that left their mark on the world. And we started doing we pivoted our business model. We still have HoneyCure when we started working with other businesses in the city of Detroit to do contract work for them, to help them scale their emerging brands, their small businesses. And we have seen a lot of the same things that we experienced as we started our company. We see that a lot of people come to us with difficulty scaling, difficulty securing funding, getting the right partnerships to come together. And one of the things that we saw is, as we built HoneyCure out, we wanted to build a sustainable platform that would make a company that would work in the long term. So we made the investments to do so. We invested in manufacturing capabilities and knowledge, expertise to do so. And so now we're helping these companies that close that gap faster, and by offering our services to them. And it's been a roller coaster, but I think we're having an impact.
Can you talk a little bit about the product, HoneyCure itself?
Yes, yeah, HoneyCure is a wound care product. It was designed first for pediatrics, so we got the idea for it out of DMC. We were doing clinical rotations, and we saw that existing products were really traumatic to use. They go on very thick creams and ointments, extremely effective at what they do. So our whole goal was to create a product that was easy on, easy off, but matched the clinical efficacy. And Rami and I spent probably close to a year developing HoneyCure, and we succeeded in it. Our product, all of the clinical trials that have come down off of it, they've mostly been targeted towards vet, but we've seen them used on all the way to dogs that have been hit by cars and really gruesome incidents. And they've bounced back with our product, and it works amazing. So we're really happy that it's performing and that it's achieving the goals that we set out for it.
Love the grittiness and talking about pivoting and pivoting again and getting through the pandemic. I mean, you and I talked a little bit about getting scrappy, and I think you were selling products during the pandemic too, just to get by. So just loved your story. Yeah. Marc, tell us a little bit about Breadless.
Yes, excited to be here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marc Howland. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Breadless. Breadless is a 100% gluten-free, fast casual restaurant. Actually, the only place in the country that specializes on sandwiches wrapped in leafy super greens instead of bread or iceberg lettuce. We also offer salads, rice bowls, soup, cold-pressed juices, vegan and gluten-free desserts. Launched right here in Detroit. Very proud to be a Detroit-founded company. This is it feels like a lifelong manifestation for me personally. You know, grew up the product of a single mom. She's actually in the audience, raising 2 kids. Was a product of scholarship, went to Brown University on a full ride, played football, ran track there, was a business econ major. I ended up actually in the world of New York City on Wall Street. I was working at Goldman Sachs as an investment banker and at the Carroll Group as a private equity investor. Went to Harvard for business school, and then funny enough, my next W-2 job was as a sandwich maker at Jimmy John's for 10 bucks an hour to do market research to learn. You know, I was a person who very much realized that as a varsity athlete, bread made me feel tired and bloated. So for the next decade, I was the guy going into every restaurant asking for the low-carb, gluten-free option, the lettuce bun, lettuce wrap instead of bread, and I always felt like it was this afterthought product. So the co-founders and I, including my wife here, as well as Ryan Salter, came up with the concept of Breadless, which elevates the breadless alternative from the afterthought to the core product, delivers it in a format that's flavorful, packed with nutritional value that we wanted to be available to masses at scale. So instead of bread or iceberg lettuce, we use leafy super greens like Swiss chard, turnip greens, collard greens, packed with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, but also with very unique flavor profiles. And we got our start just selling sandwiches out of brown paper bags in Detroit at local gyms, and people were leaving notes for us in the gym asking where they could get access to this more regularly. And then we partner with a lot of organizations that helped us, which we'll get into as well, to get to the point where now we launched our first brick and mortar restaurant in March of 2022 in the Rivertown neighborhood. We were then invited into like Comerica Park, Little Caesars Arena, very grateful for those relationships, opening our second store in Rochester Hills on October 5th. But we have a big vision to bring Breadless to neighborhoods across the country and to be a nationwide chain, predominantly through franchising as well. And so very much aligned with the story of, you know, started in Detroit, but very much have very large ambitions to bring nutritious breadless meals to neighborhoods everywhere, because we think everybody should have access to healthy, low carb, and gluten-free meals.
And they're bringing, and they're bringing it to lunch today. So everybody needs to get out there before I scoop all of the sandwiches, because I will. So let's double down a little bit on what you talked about. So you said you accessed a lot of great resources here. And I think in our conversations we talked about your wife was one of the recipients from the Applebaum Fellowship. You yourself, I think, won a Motor City match. You've had some great connections here in the city. Talk a little bit about your journey and how the ecosystem actually was part of your journey and helped.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes a village. We certainly had a multitude of individuals from 0 to 1 is a big component to that, which is conceptualizing business plan from the Zelluri Institute at the University of Michigan, and then Applebaum Fellowship that we received a grant. We were a grant recipient for to get access to funding, as well as some resources and mentors and advisors to come around to help us propel this from idea to conceptualization and to actualization by selling sandwiches inside of gyms. And then we had from Techtown Retail Bootcamp, we were part of that cohort to go through an accelerator program there, to DEGC Motor City Match to help us to get funding, also to open the first store, and Lifeline Business Consulting, as well as several organizations that came around us, from Detroit Venture Partners to ID Ventures to Michigan Good Fair Food Fund, and actually some of our customers who became investors as well. So I mean, we've had a whole ecosystem coming around us to make this a reality, and we're just getting started. There's a vision to continue to scale this, but we've been incredibly grateful for that ecosystem that I think has largely is super helpful in going from 0 to launching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Sean, you had similar experiences here in Detroit. I think you had some great resources out of Wayne State with the Anderson Institute, and also I think you talked a little bit about your time with Techtown. Tell us a little bit more about your journey and how the ecosystem supported you.
Yeah, no, Marc is completely right. It takes a village. So we started over at Techtown with the DTX Launch Detroit Accelerator. It's an accelerator program geared towards college students trying to get your ideas out the door. So as Rambi and I were completing our projects in a biomedical engineering program that birthed HoneyCure, they really encouraged us to get involved in these programs. So we went over to Techtown, applied to the program, got started. We did a 10-week summer accelerator. Anderson Institute came in 2018. We were having some issues securing enough money to get a clinical trial done, which is very, very expensive. And Anderson Institute said, hey, like, get a quote and we'll see what we can do to help. We were Wayne State students. Anderson Institute helps out a lot of Wayne State students like us, and we went over to Michigan State University. My business partner, Rami, had met a veterinarian over there who was the director of surgery, and she helped us kind of roadmap everything out, gave us costs, everything. Anderson Institute came in and said, we'll cover it. Then the cost got a little bit more. We learned about the Michigan Skip Fund, and they matched all of our investment that came through the Anderson Institute, and it enabled us to get through the program. So we've experienced help from TechTown Detroit and getting the incubation services, the introductions to get in touch with the Michigan Skip Fund, the Michigan Small Business Development Corporation, the tech team, Melanie DeVry, Elaine Piat. They've been great help resources to introduce us to people all over the state. One of the reasons that we originally pivoted into veterinary medicine from human care, as we got our start from a project in DMC, was Elaine Piat of the Michigan SBDC. He has horses, and he was sitting down with us, and he's like, you know, guys, like, it's going to take a lot of money to get started in human care, but I think if you guys look at veterinary care, like, you're going to find it's a little bit lower cost to get started, but it's going to be really similar. And he was right. So it's been a roller coaster, and we just recently started with Motor City Match. We're looking at changing things up with our location. We still do a lot of work with TechTown Detroit. We're sponsoring Toast of the Town, so we're one of their only graduates from one of their accelerator programs to come back and do a sponsorship. We've had a lot of talks with them about how we can make that happen more. And we've done some stuff with Startup Boost, and I've done some stuff, mostly mentoring with Techstars Detroit too. So we've done quite a bit to be active in the community.
Already giving it back. Yeah. Mick, what about you?
Yeah, so we had similar names, right? So very fortunate to have some early support from Detroit Venture Partners, from ID Ventures as well here in state, great early stage groups. And also some angels here in Michigan too. I think you may have heard or you will hear, right, that one of the things we're still building up, I think, in Michigan is the angel investor community. If we think about our early cap table in which we had over 10 angels, I think only one was from Michigan at the early stage, which is interesting because Michigan has the 6th highest number of ultra wealthy people here in state. And so there's a big opportunity, and so if there are angels in the audience, I would encourage you to have a look and see what's here in Michigan. You know, download Crunchbase, right, or use the app, figure out which companies. You know, it's interesting you mentioned the story about the person who owned horses and veterinary. Find what you like, find what you know and you're interested in, and have a look, right? See which companies align with your own background, where you might put money to work. Or advice, right? Companies, we need that just as much as anything else. So whether that's angel investing or whether that's thinking about advisory work with one of these companies, all of it's welcome. But that's been our journey so far. So we've been fortunate since then on the early stage to raise about $1.5 million, and we've raised, I think, 6 and change since then. So we're still building. AI, unfortunately, is not cheap, so that's the world we live in. I will say, I think as we've gone in successive rounds, you hear this story, a lot of founders saying, hey, we were able to get things going in Michigan, but as we think about our next round, the Series A and everything else, how much of that's in Michigan versus the coasts, and what does that mean for valuations and the rest? I think that's still a story to be written. You know, a lot of founders I hear say we've got to go outside of Michigan to get that next big round, but that is beginning to change, right? There are some very active investors here in Michigan that's beginning to shift, so I think it's in our favor. But if I would encourage a call to action, it's have a look at being an angel investor here in Michigan.
So you're hitting on angel investors, and at the top of this discussion, we talked a little bit about the constructive side of what we need to be doing differently here as an ecosystem. Some of the blocks that you might have faced, or things that you wish you would have had as you were building your companies, or even now. So I'm going to start with you, since you already started to talk a little bit about angel groups. I know we talked a little bit about this previously, but tell us a little bit more about what we could be doing differently or better for our early stage and growth stage companies.
Yeah, so I'll try to represent sort of our experience, but also we hear from a lot of founders. There is this gap in angel funding. I think that's certainly true, right? So if you go to the coasts or other markets for that matter, you will see people, even in this market, almost throwing money, $5,000, $10,000 checks at different ideas. Again, usually things they're familiar with, but not as much here in Michigan. So that remains, and I'd love to hear, right, my fellow panelists' view on that. The other is engagement from companies. So as you think about an early stage business where we're wearing all the hats and trying to grow, those first few customers make a huge difference in the evolution of the business. And so there are a great many large organizations and brands here in Michigan. But as we think about, at least our experience has been, we go to New York, Bank of America, others have entire groups of the company dedicated to engaging with startup companies, right? And so I don't find that as much here in Michigan that is the case. So oftentimes you'll hear about angel funding going outside the state, but you also hear about people having to go outside the state for those first such important customers. And so that's another thing I'd certainly ask if anyone's in the audience, regardless of industry, if you like what Breadless is doing, right, or other companies as well, reach out. That's another way to support the ecosystem, is consider being that early customer, regardless of scale, right, regardless of spend, but that learning is so important to businesses as they grow.
One thing I want to ask on, because you and I talked a little bit about this, but I think it's a discussion point that comes up often, is what about talent here? How has it been for you as it relating to getting great talent to help join your company?
Yeah, we've got a great foundation here in Michigan for talent. The names I mentioned earlier, at least in our world, you think about Duo and others, are building a talent pipeline of startup experienced and successful people who know what it means to do growth marketing or what it means to do legal and think about diligence that we'll experience in different rounds of funding. So it's evolving. There are great founder groups as well, like Michigan Founders Fund here, that help build that ecosystem, places like Bamboo and others where you can find that talent around town. So it is really evolving. Even in the 2 years since I've moved back to Michigan, it's changed a lot, right? And so I'm very excited to see that. So I have not had challenges in talent. Thankfully, the national market for tech talent has slowed a bit. It's unfortunate in many ways, but for us, it's helped. I think that's only going to accelerate things for Michigan in the future.
Great. Sean, what about you?
Yeah, we've been blessed with excellent people who've worked with us. Our company's now 10 people strong, and everyone on our staff is awesome. I would say that talent here in the city of Detroit, there's no shortage of it. There's a lot of people who are interested in getting involved. I would say in terms of expertise, it would be one of the things Rami and I dealt with as we got started, especially our product, HoneyCure, was a medical focused product. And we could have used a lot more advice in the sense, and guidance in the sense of getting a medical product off the ground. If we would have known everything that we knew now, we would have done things a little bit differently in terms of seeking some of the approvals. Because a lot of the pathways that we learned about as we went on, we learned that there's this nondescript pathway that the FDA put out that you could apply for, and it's totally comped and helps gets a new product out. So I feel like that's one thing that's kind of missing in Michigan is people who have that expertise, and we found a lot of that expertise outside of the state as we got more into business and involved in things. But in terms of talent here, we have an excellent group of people that we've worked with. The entrepreneurship ecosystem has been really wonderful. Everyone here wants to get together. They share resources willingly and make introductions, increase people's network. That has made starting a business really, really, really enjoyable and easy in that sense. It's still a lot of work, but as we've said before, though, it takes a village. And so the village is definitely here.
Anything else? Any other suggestions or ideas to be able to strengthen this ecosystem? What you would like to see here to help founders like you?
A more active angel and community would be really helpful. As we were getting started, the cost of clinical trials is really hard. And the Anderson Institute really changed the face of our business in that sense. We also took some money out of the Detroit Demo Day. And in 2019, that also helped us close some things. Some of our products that we use in our product HoneyCure come from out of the country, and so it's expensive to do imports. That's another area of expertise that we could have used some help on here in the area. We actually went to Chicago to find someone to help us do those imports. We drove there overnight because we learned that our very first shipment we needed to do more customs process for. So expertise, sharing that expertise, bringing it back, making it part of the ecosystem, and additional angel investment, that would be really helpful.
Great. Marc?
Yeah, so I think a lot of great themes here, right? On of course, there are resources around us and organizations that are helpful, and I think the playbook is really important for people to understand. Any industry, there's a playbook, right? Entrepreneurship, there's a playbook, and I think there's been a ton of resources that have been critical for us to help us to get from sort of 0 to 1 and to be able to execute. And at this point, in order to get from a few stores to our nationwide presence, right? There's a playbook for that. There's people who have been out there and done it, but we don't know how to do that with our current team, right? We're going to need help to get there. And as I think about the resources that are in the city, and there's so many great organizations, right, from Endeavor to Michigan Founders Fund and a lot of organizations that are out there. But I think that, as we mentioned, the collective ability for everybody to collaborate and take advantage of resources. I mean, I look around this room right now, you have all these expats, successful people from around the country who are proud of Detroit. If I asked you all right now, here, a show of hands, like how many of you would be interested? I mean, actually, no. How many of you would be excited to be an advisor, a mentor, an investor, or open up your company to pilot testing or beta testing, or a connector for startups in the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Detroit? Like, show of hands. I see the majority of hands up here, right? And so that means, so if all of you right now, if we said, okay, let's go take advantage of that, what would be the mechanism to get all of you right now to go take advantage and to do the thing that you would want to do to add the most value? And I think that's where we still have a little bit of work in the city. It's capitalizing on all of you to filter in by industry group, by sector, here's where I can add the most value, and then to have all the organizations that we already have and the funding that's available to help filter that to all the respective parties who can most be the recipients, so the whole ecosystem is sort of capitalizing on its strengths. So I definitely think that there's some opportunity there, and there's a ton of support that's come around us, just like both of your companies, which we've been exceptionally grateful for. And we know it definitely takes a village, and we're excited that we're having these conversations and can bring all these people together so that these types of ambitious plans will be actualized.
So I know we only have 3 minutes left, but I'm going to double click on what you just said. If you had one ask for this audience, this fantastic audience of entrepreneurs, potential investors, current investors, industry leaders, expats who are dedicated to supporting Michigan and especially Detroit, what would be that one ask for the audience?
Well, for me, it's easy. I would say if any of you have either scaled a fast casual restaurant concept or know somebody who has, from a few to hundreds, my ask would be to please pull out your phone and put in your subject line, "Scaling Breadless, let's talk," and just put marc@eatbreadless.com, and I'll follow up with you later.
There you go.
That would be that. So marc@eatbreadless.com, marc@eatbreadless.com, "Scaling Breadless, let's talk," and I'll follow up.
All right.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Marc. It's one of those things where expertise is the thing that we need most. As we expand from HoneyCure into EnBiologics, which is doing more production work, one of the things that my business partner and myself, we're engineers. We've not run a production company before and scaled it to the size that we want. We also have ambitious goals. So that's one of the things that we would really appreciate is if someone wanted to reach out, say like, hey, I know how to make some connections, introduce you to some network, some ideas, some things. More than willing to see it. So me, I'm Sean at EnBiologics.com.
Making it easy for the audience.
So for Hush, and by the way, it's gohush.com is our URL in case you're keen. I wouldn't try to spell my name and my email address. So, so find me on the website that's there. For us, we are fourth in goal. We should be closing on a new round of capital tomorrow. So we're very excited about that. So thank you. So for us, it's customers, right? It's about scaling. It's about getting into those places where it takes time to get in. For us, it's financial services. So it's a lot of banks, a lot of fintechs. That's where we spend a lot of our time supporting customers and trying to help them avoid cyber attacks. But I will say this in addition, forget Hush for a minute, go to Crunchbase, right, .com. Find a company that intrigues you and reach out to them, right? Whether one of the ones on stage or something else that you know well, whether it's an advisor, whether it's an investor, or just look, I want to learn more about what you're doing here in Michigan, find a company. Just one. That's my ask.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for being on the panel with me. It's 3 of my new friends who are crushing it with early companies growing out of Detroit. So thank you, Mick. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Marc. And thank you to the Homecoming team in Cranes for having us and letting us talk about entrepreneurship here in Detroit.